G'day, welcome along to another Property Live. It is so good to have you here on a Tuesday night where we're going to talk about how we've spent over $100,000 on creating New Zealand's first property AI. And we're going to have an absolute wonderful time tonight. We're going to take you through a whole heap of things that this AI can do and also talk about some of its limitations and where we want to take it. But first of all, I love to do a bit of a sound check just to make sure that it's all coming through clearly. So my question tonight is, what color shirt do I have on so that I can make sure that you guys are able to hear me? Samuel said white. We'll get a couple more, but a couple of people said pink, green. Maybe just need to change your settings, but absolutely. Jay said it's white. Cool. All of the sounds working. That's kind of the most important thing that we've got on tonight. Now, if you guys don't know me, my name's Ed. I'm an economist here at Opus Partners. This is Andrew, my business partner. He's a financial advisor and managing director here at Opus Partners. And we've been doing these Property Live webinars for probably the last 5 years now. We've done well over 50 of them, and we're really excited that we just released our 2000th episode today for the Property Academy podcast, which is pretty cool. And the most exciting thing, as you're gonna find out in these webinars, is there are over 500 people in here right now, and the counter just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. We actually had over 3,000 people register for this webinar, so you guys can chat back and forth throughout the webinar while Andrew and I are talking away. Now, look, we're at 7:01, so I like to rip straight into it. But Andrew, what is tonight all about?
So tonight we're talking about, or Ed's explaining, how he spent $102,000. And this is just on the AI functionality that is going to be part of the Opes Plus model and on our website. So it's pretty exciting. And we have a CFO in our company. And Fraser, I mean, he wasn't that smiley when you mentioned to him how much you were planning on spending. But basically his comment is, why are you going to use AI at all? Like we've got all these we've got 20 financial advisors across the group. Why do we need to have AI here as well? And the truth of the matter is, back when you bought a property, a rental property or a house back in 2003, it was pretty easy.
I mean, that's actually when you bought your first investment property.
Was it 2003?
At 19 years old.
That's 21 years ago.
Yeah.
That's scary, isn't it? And I haven't aged a bit. Oh, actually, there I am down there. And, you know, back then, and Ed and I just had lunch today with a mortgage legend, Tony Mounts, and he helped me with my first mortgage, and it was pretty easy. Back then, you basically just go and you see a property, and you go, yeah, I like that one, and the bank will give you some money. It was that easy. Nowadays, you basically have to give up your firstborn, give them your DNA sample,
cut off your arm,
hop on one foot, and fill out a whole lot of forms. It is so much harder than it was 20-something years ago. And it can be a bit daunting for people, particularly if you're wanting to build a portfolio of properties, because sure, you might be able to scrape through and make it work now, but how the hell do I work out what I can do in the future? And we couple that problem with the fact that now we have these amazing tools like AI, and we get what we're going to show you tonight.
And the most amazing thing is, whenever we talk to property investors, they ask a lot of questions like, I just want to find out if I can buy an investment property. I just want to see what I can do. I want to know how many properties I can buy or see the sort of portfolio I can grow. And we've tried to answer that through these webinars over the last 5 years. Some of you guys who have been around for a long time, and I'd love you to let us know down in the chat if you've got some of these spreadsheets. But back in 2020, I released the first version of the investment ready spreadsheet where you could type in your details and it would kind of give you an idea of what you might be able to borrow.
Pretty basic back then, wasn't it? When you look back, it was pretty basic, Ed.
I mean, there were a lot of complex formulas in the back end, but I remember we ran some ads talking about that you could use this to be your own mortgage broker, and the only people who were interested were mortgage brokers who were very confused by it. So we went from there, and then in 2022, we released another spreadsheet, the updated version, the investment ready. Again, we released it for free at a webinar. Some of you guys will have it. And this was kind of about, if you can't afford an investment property right now, when might you be able to afford one in the future? And then, of course, as some of you guys will know, last year I hired one of the top 20 people in the world at Microsoft Excel. So people who actually compete at the Microsoft Excel Financial Modeling World Cup.
Do they have a theme song?
It's the Excel World Championship. Who is going to win? It's great.
I've heard this about 400 times today in preparation of tonight.
Andrew wouldn't let me sing that to you all. And we released late last year a spreadsheet that forecast how many properties you could actually buy. And so I kind of tell you this because tonight's webinar and what we're releasing in terms of AI is a continuation of all of the things we've been trying to release and all of your feedback that you've given us about what could we make better. And so most recently, we hired another spreadsheet legend. So this is Nick Boberg, who we've been working with. He is a New Zealander, lives in Hamilton, and he recently competed at the Microsoft Excel World Championship in 2024 in the finals over in Las Vegas. And it's so wonderful. There were actually 2 Kiwis over there in Las Vegas. We've actually worked with both of them and hired both of them to work on our models. And Nick has helped us create the model that we are going to release tonight. But if I come back to that question around why would you use AI at all? So the model that we're going to release tonight and show you guys, it plans out potential investment properties that you could purchase and says when you could potentially buy them. And it runs a whole heap of scenarios. Now, when I sat down and thought about, okay, how many scenarios can this thing run? Like over a 15-year period. Do you know how many different combinations there are, Andrew, of that you could potentially have in the model we're releasing?
A million.
No.
Why'd you ask me?
Way more than a million. It is 324 nonillion, right? So not
a million.
Not a million, not a billion, not a trillion, not a quadrillion, not a quintillion, not a sextillion, or a septillion, or an octillion. 324 nonillion different scenarios, which is basically like saying that what we're talking about tonight has over a trillion multiplied by a trillion scenarios. It is just an unfathomably large number because once you start thinking about, okay, I'm going to purchase a property this year, but that has an impact on what sort of properties I can purchase in the future. Because there are an unfathomably large number of scenarios that this model could produce, that is the reason why Andrew thought, okay, we've all heard about OpenAI. Let's try and introduce Opes Ai. So because there's no way that a single financial advisor, even somebody like Andrew, could think through 324 nonillion scenarios, that's the reason why, Fraser, we're talking about AI. But Andrew, there's a lot of people tonight who's going to be thinking, okay, this is interesting. There's over 3,000 people here. Who the hell are you guys?
Yeah, so let's just talk about who we are and what you're here tonight to hear about. So there are 3,330 people registered for tonight. You couldn't just get 3 more, could you? Anyway, why should you listen to us? Well, let's just go back to who we are and what Opus does. So we have New Zealand's #1 business podcast, the Property Academy podcast. Hopefully some listeners here tonight. Over 9.8 million downloads now with episode 2000 today. Almost 10 million. We're going to tick over that probably in the next few weeks. In terms of my background, company background, so 2,000 podcasts, over 50 webinars. We've got 17 financial advisors. I think I said 20 before. 17 financial advisors across our group. And our book, Wealth Plan, is currently in bookstores if that's the way you like to digest your information. Ed, he's an economist here at Opus Partners. He's a property investor himself, is regularly featured in the New Zealand Herald. I'm the managing financial advisor and managing director of Opus Partners. I'm a property investor myself and I write for Stuff. Now, here's what you're going to get tonight. So in terms of the content, you're going to get the webinar for free. The Q&A at the end is actually some of the gold. So if you've never been to one of these webinars before, don't rush off at the end because the Q&A section at the end is the best time to ask either something you want to know or hear about things that other people want to know. Tomorrow we'll send you the recording for free. One of my One of
Yeah,
my,
actual bugbears.
it is. This is the thing that keeps me up at night. If you're putting a chat here tonight, put your chat in the chat section where you are chatting at the moment. If you've got a question, put it in the Q&A, because Ed and I will try and smash through as many of those as possible at the end. And if you put them in the chat, they get lost. And I want to answer as many questions as possible. So put them in the Q&A section, and make sure you turn your responses to everyone. So don't put hosts and panelists. That's the default, because it'll just come to Ed, David, and myself. Make sure it's to everyone so everyone can see them, because we want to build a community where you'll answer each other's questions and support each other in your property investment journeys.
Cool. And just before we rip into the bottle, I want to get to know you a little bit more. So I'm going to put a poll across your screen and ask you, just to get a sense of you guys, how many properties do you own, including your own home? Is it none yet? 1, which might just be your own home, 2 to 3 properties, or 4 or more? I'm going to ask producer Dave to put that across your screen.
And just while everyone's putting that in the chat, so we always have polls here. So there'll be a poll that it jumps across your screen. Hopefully it's there now. So for any newbies, just answer on the poll, because then it collates all the answers. Wow, there's some serious investors here tonight.
And what we'll do is, you guys are all answering it at the moment. We've had over 560 people answer that already. Once it slows down a bit, we'll release that in there.
829 people listening right now. That's so
Actually,
awesome.
It's creeped up since you started that sentence as well. So I'm going to end that poll in 3, 2, 1. And we'll share those results. So we can see that about 50 of you, just 8%, are saying we actually don't own any properties yet. That's cool. Hopefully tonight you'll get a sense of what you might be able to do. We've got about a quarter of you saying, look, I own a property, a single property. It might be an investment. It might be an own home. And 43% of you saying I own 2 or 3. What's amazing, Andrew, almost a quarter of people saying, holy heck, yeah, I own 4 or more properties. So some pretty serious investors. Now, I saw some people ask down the chat, right, let's get into the AI. That is exactly what we're going to get into. So there are 3 things we're going to talk about. First of all, we're going to talk about how to get free property info. Second thing we're going to discuss is how many properties can you actually buy, and then also the downsides of the system. So one thing we didn't mention is there are 2 parts to the AI that are getting released. The first one today is a chatbot. So we've written 567 articles, 267 videos. We've released over 2,000 podcasts, 59 webinars, a book, and 1 million data points. And we've taken that and put it into Opes Ai. And I'll show you how that works in a second. But the reason we've done this is because if you're just a regular couple, how are you going to read 567 articles and watch 267 videos of Andrew and I talking about all things property? You want to get a sense of like, okay, just let me add it with the knowledge. And so we are releasing, I haven't come up with the name for it yet. It might be Opes GPT. It might just be Opes Ai. And I will show you an example of exactly how it looks. This is the first thing that you're going to get for free tonight. So, Andrew, if we look at Opes Ai, this knows everything on our website. What sort of things might you want to know? Take the pen out of your mouth.
Sorry, I was just typing at the same time. I want to know how much rents have increased in the last 10 years.
Okay, how much have rents
in
increased in Wellington over the last 10 years? The scary thing about this is live and
released today.
And if it doesn't work, it's going to be scary. Okay, so over the last 10 years, rents in Wellington have seen a significant increase. It's gone from 250 in October 2013 up to 550. That's 120% over the decade.
Can you ask it where it gets that data from?
Yes, I can ask you that, and I know what it's going to say. Where do you get that data from? And it says it's sourced from our proprietary knowledge base, including rent prices.
Okay.
The answer is we get it from IMBI. IMBI is where we source that from. And I'll show you an example, a comparison a little later on between Opes AI and Chat GPT.
And actually, does anyone want to put, you can use the chat for this, anyone put some ideas in there while I feed Ed some other information, some other ideas?
Well, just before you get into that, what I want to know is, well, in Wellington, that 120% increase, what is that as an annual increase or an annual compounding increase? Because you might want to know that if you're in Wellington, and I'll just make sure that I actually spell my words right. And so this should spit out as well uh, both the calculation and how it actually works. So it starts talking. It says, okay, it's 10 years. Here's the formula for how it actually works. It works out to be approximately an 8.3% compounding increase per year. Okay, that's quite interesting. But what about if you're thinking of investing in Spraydon and Christchurch, which is a suburb? You might want to know what is the average capital growth rate for Spraydon in Christchurch? And again, I'll make sure that I spell it the right way. And it thinks a bit and it starts to spit out the answer, which is 6.2%. So that indicates it's at a pretty good growth phase.
Can you ask how long that period is that it's looking at?
Yeah, sure. How long is that period over?
Peter wants to know what this week's winning lotto numbers are.
It'll probably spit out something like this. I apologize, but I don't have that information.
Okay, well, some other questions were, does it have Airbnb occupancy data?
Oh, it does not have Airbnb occupancy
but Samuel,
data.
that's a great suggestion. And things like this, I'm guessing we've got the ability to for Ed to capture all the great ideas that people have when they're using these tools. Let us know other things you want it to be able to do, because this is the first version and we are going to build this into something where you can go in there and get any question that you want about property answered.
I'll tell you another one. So I was on Instagram the other day and there's somebody I follow called My Property Diary. It's an investor in New Zealand who shares her journey. And one of the things she was talking about that she uses AI for is to get a second opinion about her investment strategy. So for instance, let's say I am a homeowner and I live in Invercargill, the great city of Invercargill. My house is worth, what would a house be worth in Invercargill? Andrew?
Oh, sorry. Let's say it's worth 400,000.
400,000. What might be a mortgage?
Let's say the mortgage is down to 125,000.
125K. Act as Andrew Nicol and give me some property advice about how I can start investing in property. And it will think for a little bit and it should start spitting some stuff out. As Andrew Nicol, here's some property investment advice tailored to your situation. It talks about you've got 275 grand of equity, talks about the deposit you need, talks about the strategies in terms of interest deductibility, land type, cash flow management. Of course, it's going to talk about professional advice, but also having that long-term perspective that Andrew talks a lot about on the podcast. That's a long-term strategy. Be prepared for some of those market fluctuations. I quite like this. For your next step, consider booking a session with Opes Partners.
Campbell said asked a really good one. Can it differentiate the difference between apartments, townhouses, or a flat or a regular house for capital growth and rent increases?
Well, let's have a little look-see and ask it. So what about the types of properties let's spell properties the right way, properties that increase in value faster? Do townhouses, houses, or apartments go up in value faster? What somebody asked.
Whether or not the next Labour government will introduce a wealth tax.
It probably won't say that. So in New Zealand, standalone houses generally tend to grow in value slightly faster than townhouses, while apartments typically experience slower capital growth compared to both houses and townhouses. And then it gives you a lot of that data.
Real numbers.
So the important part of this, which is kind of different to some of the other AI tools that you might have used, is this is just looking at the data that we have that maybe Chat GPT might not have. So for example, there's a lot of data that we collect out of Tenancy Services, the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand, and CoreLogic QV that we're feeding into this and we're kind of categorizing. Now, it's not perfect yet, but in some instances, it can give slightly, and I will say slightly, better answers than Chat GPT. Other thing that I just want to mention about this, and again, this is just the first AI tool that we're releasing tonight. The other thing is that because it's based in New Zealand and we're feeding in all of that data, we're looking at what are people going to ask it? What are the answers it's giving? How do we make those better? How do we make it more specific just for property investment in New Zealand? So I don't think it's going to be a complete replacement for Chat GPT, but hopefully it will be quite useful for you. It's also free and you don't have to log in. So those are a couple of other benefits as well. It can also be really specific. I just want to give you one more example. What do you think about Wolfbrook property developers? What can you tell me about them? And then we ask it the question. It should spit out something pretty good because we've written some stuff about them in the past. Just takes a little moment to load. Cool. So they're based in New Zealand. They build some townhouses. They kind of started in 2020 and are operating in Christchurch, Wellington, Auckland. The 9th busiest home builder in New Zealand. And over the last 12 months, they've considered 201 homes, 99 square meters is the average. And the average build cost is $240K, and you can read a lot more there. And I suppose the real benefit of this, Andrew, is that last month? We released our developer database.
Yeah,
Gosh,
last month. It was 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, and so we've released a lot of tools. We've got over 1,000 pages on our website. You're not going to be able to get through them all. So this is just a way to be able to get easier access to that information and have a bit of a conversation.
A few other questions, and you don't have to answer them on here, but you can just say whether or not this is possible yet, and or park it in your brain for later on. So someone said, can you compare different capital growth in different areas? So you can do that.
Oh, I haven't asked that question yet.
Well, let's ask it now. So compare the growth for Spraydon and Christchurch versus Mount Albert in Auckland. And then someone also said, this was a really good one.
Wait a second.
Sorry.
Wait a second.
Well, I doubt you're going to be able to do this one, but this is something to think about.
Well, yeah, let's do this one first.
Okay.
So we've asked that compare the capital growth rate for Spraydon and Christchurch versus Mount Albert and Auckland. So the long-term capital growth rate, here we go. So Spraydon's been 6.2%, Mount Albert's been 6.7%. Both are relatively strong, so we should be happy about that. To be honest, it should be quite good at this because I know that we have a page on our website about Spraydon and how fast the capital growth rate has been. And similarly, we've got exactly the same about Mount Albert. That's pulling it out of Area Analyzer. So again, this is just a tool to help make it a bit easier for you. What else have you got?
Someone asked what the oldest and newest data is that we've got access to.
Cool. So the newest data would be the January, because I know because I uploaded it all myself, would be the January sales data out of the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand. The oldest data, depending on what you're looking at, would be the house price index data that comes from, and the average house price data that comes from the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand, which goes back to 1992.
Rob's asked, can it forecast capital growth depending on the number of houses built for each different type and a potential oversupply in a particular area, and therefore it might slow capital growth in the future?
No, it can't do that. No, it can't do that. What it really does is looks at all of the information that we've released and tries to make it really simple for you. But you could even ask it some quite interesting things. So one of our marketing people is a girl called Holly McLaughlin. Before she was an Opus staff member, she actually came on the podcast. And so I was sitting down with her today and I said, let's just ask her and see if it knows who is Holly McLaughlin. And hopefully it gives the same answer because, of course, it's always a bit different for every different people. Cool. She was somebody who came on the podcast and she talked about how she started flipping houses while earning $48,000 a year.
And it links the podcast so you can go back and listen to it.
So you
How
can
good
go
is
look
that?
at it. Because I know previously we've had, and it might still be up there.
Who's better looking, Ed or Andrew? That's from Charmaine.
Oh, from Charmaine. Okay.
Great question.
Who is more handsome, Andrew or Ed? Let's ask it. I'm sure it'll give the right answer. It is
Wow,
more
what
handsome
an
than Andrew.
absolute load of... Oh, it turns out we can't release this. It's broken.
The funny thing, Charmaine, just so you know, is there's a section in the back end where I can go and tell it what to say. Before we came on tonight, I went in and said, Ed is more handsome than Andrew. So I can go and take that out. But that is just the first part that I want to release. And we've got time for this. I do want to do a little bit of a comparison just between OpenAI's Chat GPT and also Opes Plus. Now, there's something really important that we should mention, and I saw that somebody asked this before, who said, hey, I don't want to talk about what AI is. I want to talk about what's the underlying model. So just for the techie people out there, what we've done is we've taken Chat GPT and we specifically feed it with our data, our 2,000 podcasts, our 500 articles, our 50 webinars, all of the videos, and say, cool, really learn from this and dig into this, as well as our 1 million+ plus data points that we've got of property market data and really try to feed it.
Does it look, so you said before the videos, so does it actually take the transcriptions from the videos? How does that work?
So what we're doing is we transcribe everything and we're feeding it into that as
Wow.
well. But of course, this is our first version, not our forever version. So what I just want to ask you guys is, okay, let's figure it out together. Let's do a comparison between Opes Ai and Chat GPT. And let's be honest, Opes Ai could well lose in this comparison, but let's do it anyway. What do you want to know? Do you want to do a comparison between how fast do rents go up, how fast do house prices go up, or what's Andrew's advice for a first-time investor? We're going to put that poll across your screen, and we're going to work on this together as a bit of a team and a bit of a community. And again, it's amazing. You launch it and 2 seconds later, you've got 200 people answering that question because there's 920 people online right now. At the moment, people are really interested in how fast house prices go up. I feel a little bit confident in that one, so I'm quite excited about that. And we're going to close that off in 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end that poll, and producer Dave will share those results with you. So over half of you guys want to know how fast do house prices go up. So we're going to do a little comparison between the two. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to look at Chat GPT. I'll tell you what I was doing first, Andrew. I was checking my history.
I already looked at it today, this afternoon when we were preparing for this. I thought if there's something embarrassing in there, I was going to hit you up about it. Like, how do I make my partner happy for once?
Actually, let's not do Auckland. Let's do Dunedin. So how fast have house prices gone up in Dunedin over the last 10 years? And let's just keep it quite broad. We could prompt it with act as a New Zealand economist and see what it says. But it says, okay, I love this. I love that it's pulling off our website.
There you go.
That's very kind of Chat GPT. Thank you, Sam Altman. So as of December 2024, the average property price is 650 odd K. It's an average increase of 5.3%. Actually, that's very good that it's pulling that off. The only thing is that's pulling it over the last 20 years rather than the last 10 years, but we've got it here. So the median house price in Dunedin rose from 300K to 620, which is an increase of 7.2%. So that's pretty cool. You can see that it's pulling quite a bit, actually. Actually, it's entirely pulling from our website, Andrew.
Right. So should that mean that basically they're the same answer then if it's pulling from our website?
Well, I should hope so, but let's put it in here just to see as a bit of an example. I almost want to write a nice card to Sam Altman saying thank you for referencing our website.
Do you think a man who's entirely dedicated his life to the internet wants a card? Bit of a trait.
So they've said since October 2013, the average house price was 286. As of 2023, it's risen to about 615. This is an increase of 115% over a decade. So the only difference is that it looks like ChatGPT is using data that is 2 months more current, and their numbers are more rounded compared to ours. So our number was 286 grand. They said 300. They've said it's gone up to $620,000. We've said it's gone up to 615,000. So I feel good that it is reasonably comparable. But I'm quietly quite proud that they're pulling a lot of data off our website ourselves from our website pages. So that's pretty cool as well. So that's a little comparison. Now, a lot of you guys will be wanting to know, and I've seen some people say, okay, how do I get access to this? This seems quite interesting. Like, what's the deal? How do I actually get this? So this is currently live right now. It is available to everyone. We're giving it away for free tonight. And I kind of don't want to tell you what the link is right now. Because
Matt already did that.
Oh, somebody's already given it? Oh, okay, that's quite easy.
People are already using it.
It's opuspartners.co.nz/AI. So really, really secret. opuspartners.co.nz/AI. You can go and use that now. But I actually think, Andrew, that this is the less exciting one.
Someone said before you need a refund on your $102,000. You could get plugins for this. This is nothing.
That's just the first one.
Buckle up.
Yeah, the really good one is where we're going. So the second part that a lot of you guys will want to know is how many properties can I buy? And I want to give you a bit of an example. So let's talk about some average Aucklanders. And Andrew, walk us through the numbers of this
I just
example.
love that all these people have been using it for the last 15 minutes and you thought that you had a sneaky URL. Okay. What would you want me to do?
I want you to talk about the average Aucklanders.
Okay, average Aucklanders. We're going to do some planning for some example clients. So we're going to use some average Aucklanders. They both earn $80,000 each. They've got a house worth $1 million. They've got a $450K mortgage at the moment, and they've got 2 kids and 2 cars. The traditional family, other than the fact they've got no other debt.
Yep, and they've got no other debt. And so the second part, which is really cool, is trying to figure out, well, when can these people actually afford to purchase an investment property, and are they able to? And so one thing that's really cool that we've been kind of releasing, some of you guys will have seen this, is we've created over the last couple of months Opes Plus, which is the software that all of our investors use. But I want to show you how it works. Now, Andrew, just walk us through their fact find to kind of show the details in here before we show what their financial plan might look like and how many properties they can buy.
So fairly normal kind of goals. They want to travel more. They want to build a passive income. They want to retire earlier. And again, this is kind of the things that we see all the time. And again, we've put in a property for them. We've put in all their details here. Put in their salaries, $80,000 and $80,000. We've put in their property details, so they own their own property in Remus, $1 million value, and a mortgage of $450. We've put in their mortgage structure at the moment, so 5.5 fixed until the end of the year, 30-year term. What they've got in savings, so at the moment they've got savings of $50,000. They're putting some contributions towards that. That's in their KiwiSaver, right?
Yeah, that's in their KiwiSaver.
Second KiwiSaver, $60,000, putting in 3% of their income. No other savings other than that at the moment because they're paying down their mortgage. No unusual expenses other than just life and their mortgage. Liabilities, nothing outside of their mortgage, as we said before.
And so what the really cool thing that we wanted to show you that we actually spent the 100K on is what happens when you create a financial plan for them. Now, this is something we do every single day here at Opus Partners. And Andrew, I want you to walk through what it would like and what it looks like and how you'd use AI to plan their portfolio.
Cool. So let's say these people are going to start with the nest egg strategy, which is when they build up their wealth until they get to retirement, and then they spend it till they die. So this is very normal for people that are maybe kind of in their 50s. So these people are 50, they want to retire at, let's say, 65. And they're going to live to 90. And when I say they, I mean she will live to 90. $100,000 a year that they want to spend, for example. And then let's put in what they're doing at the moment. So right now they've got KiwiSaver. Let's put in first person's KiwiSaver as per the fact find. Then let's put in the second person's KiwiSaver, $60,000, 3% in, 3% matched in an aggressive fund, which is awesome. So that's going to be worth kind of around that $400,000 market retirement.
And it's important to kind of mention here, what you're looking at is they've set a goal of they want to live on $100,000 a year once they turn 65. So the dark purple line is their goal. And we're looking at, well, if they keep doing what they're doing now with their KiwiSaver, will they be on track for that goal? At the moment, the answer is no. But you also want to chuck in superannuation.
Yeah. Now, one of them is going to be entitled to the superannuation in 15 years. The other one's a bit younger, so we're not going to include that. So that means that all up, these people, if they get to 65 or the older person 65, they're going to have the equivalent to be able to spend $42.5 grand a year. Okay, that's a big gap from the $100,000. And when I say big gap, $1.3 million is how much they've got as far as a wealth cap at the moment. That's that red area there. Now, if they were to just save themselves rich, they'd have to start saving $82,000 a year. So basically one person's entire income without the tax right now for the next 15 years. That's how much they'd need to save to close that gap. Now, that's pretty daunting for most people. Now, what I'm going to do is show you, okay, well, they're going to either have to change their investment habits or they're going to have to change their goals. Now, let's say these people don't want to change their goals. They've worked hard for the last, 30 years, and now they actually want to get into a position where they can enjoy these things. So this is where we'd normally plan out their investment property portfolio. Now, we can do that manually. That's what we've been doing for the last few years, but now we can plan it with AI.
And so this is the really interesting part where it's like, okay, these people want to purchase some investment properties. And what the AI will do is say, well, what's your goal? Do you want to close your wealth gap, i.e., get up here? Do you want to buy as many properties as possible? Or do you want to build as much wealth as possible? So we're going to say closing my wealth gap. And then it starts planning your portfolio. Now, this is the really exciting part. This is the expensive part. So it looks at all of your information, it sends it off to AI, it generates some investment properties, and it will come back with the first sample of a plan. And so what it's saying is, okay, we expect that right now you are able to borrow 837, call it 838 grand for an investment property. And we think this is what you're going to be able to afford in the future. This is our forecast for what you could potentially purchase. And it said, okay, maybe we'll start with a Christchurch 2-bedroom townhouse as an investment.
As an example, but then of course, if you're going to overlay this with a financial advisor's advice. So I'd look at this and I'd say, okay, well, actually, you've got a bit more in the tank in terms of budget, and knowing what I know about the Auckland market right now, about there being opportunities there, I'd probably actually stretch myself and I'd go for something, maybe in Auckland as an example. Let's say a 3-bedroom townhouse in Auckland in year 1. So that's going to use up more of what I can afford to borrow, or what we project you can afford to borrow, but then it's going to affect when I can buy the next one.
Yeah, and I just really want to point out what you were talking about, Andrew. Did you see before, when they were buying a cheaper property, they could afford to borrow more next year? Now that they're spending all of their budget, no. They're not going to be able to afford to purchase another property for potentially quite some time. And so then you might say, okay, they're going to purchase a Christchurch 2-bedroom townhouse in 8 years. Actually, they might not be able to do it, because by that time, Christchurch property prices might have increased to the point where that's not going to be affordable for them.
But then what I might do here, so you'd work with your financial advisors. This is both an investment advisor and a mortgage broker. And you might say, okay, well, I know that I probably need more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some changes so that I can get, say, a Christchurch standalone house as an example. And again, this is just examples at the moment. This is just using some numbers in 5 years. Okay, so now I'm going to change that. And yes, that's unaffordable for me based on what we imagine a Christchurch standalone house would be in 5 years. So what do I need to do now to get to that level? And that's where you need personalized financial advice. And you overlay these two things. You use the tool with projections, and then show me what that looks like in terms of their wealth gap. Okay, so interestingly enough, the first property, the Auckland property, has closed a big chunk of the wealth gap. That's the top one there. The Christchurch house, that's closed another 14% of the wealth gap. Not quite there in 15 years, but let's say these people are absolutely tapped from a borrowing ability by making everything work from the Christchurch standalone house. Push that out a year, Ed, and see what that does. Great. So now what you've seen is now I've exceeded the goal. That's in 17 years. But remember, this model is very binary in the sense that it says, okay, at X date, you're going to blow the candles out on your birthday cake and you're going to sell everything all at once. You're going to take all your money because you need it all at once. That's not true for most people, right? If you've got multiple investments, you might sell that first property when you turn, in this case, 65, then you might hold the other property for another 10 years. So there's quite a lot of wiggle room here. So just wind it back one more year and tell me what that looks like now in terms of a wealth crashing. Just go on to the next page there. Oh, there we go. Or you can look at it there. So that means now I've jumped from $46,000 a year over that 16-year period to $96,000. I've added $50,000 more to my retirement spending by adding 2 properties, one of which I can absolutely do now based on the numbers. The second one we could do in 5 years, based on doing a bit of work with a mortgage broker.
Yeah, the really important part, or the exciting part of this, Andrew, is the part that's been really difficult for people for many, many years. In fact, when we were out for lunch with one of our mortgage broker friends today, he was saying, oh, yeah, back in the day, I'd invested in this company that would try and forecast how many different sorts of properties you might be able to purchase in the future. And it seems like we've finally cracked it by being able to say, well, this one's not affordable for you. In the past, you probably wouldn't have known that if you're like, okay, how many properties can I actually buy? Now, bear in mind, this couple have a bit of debt, $450,000, and currently earn $160,000. So I want to give you another example of people who are perhaps a little bit more well off to show you what might be possible.
Now, just while we're doing this as well, I see heaps of really good questions coming in the chat. If you've got a question particularly about this, I am missing those, so put them in the Q&A section, and Ed and I will answer those at the end all together so that we're giving you really quality answers rather than rushing through them.
So let's talk about some well-off Wellingtonians.
You love a little alliteration, don't you?
I love alliteration. So Andrew, talk to us about their scenario, and then we'll go through and see that these guys can actually afford more properties.
Okay, so these people both earn $100,000 each, so really, really good incomes. House worth $800,000 because they've been hit by the Wellington drops. $200,000 mortgage, 2 cars, 2 kids, and no other debt.
Okay, so they've got a little bit more cash. Let's jump into their scenario. And I won't go through whether they might have inputted all of their financial details. We'll just skip straight to the good part. What sort of strategy might these guys use?
So these people might use the more superior option, which is where we're going to live on the returns of our investments rather than spend our money. So nest egg is an accumulation and decumulation model. So I'm this age today. I'm going to build it up till I turn whatever age you want to stop working, and then I'm going to spend it till I die. Downside with that, you got to predict when you're going to die. And if you get that wrong, you'll either work too long because you're so worried about running out of money, and that's no fun, or you're going to live too long and then you're going to run out of money. That's even less fun. So the golden goose strategy means, okay, it probably requires a bit more time, more work, but if you are able to hit that, what you're going to do is be able to live off the returns of your investments so that if you live to 100 or 1,000, it doesn't matter because you're still getting the same amount of money, inflation adjusted, coming in for the rest of your life, no matter what that age is. This is particularly useful for anyone that wants to create generational wealth, where you want to pass those assets on to your kids and really set those up, if you like your kids.
So the main thing here with the golden goose, if you guys haven't heard of it before, we've got tons of podcasts on it, a couple of articles, but we kind of introduced it in our book, which you guys can see up there, Wealth Plan. And basically the golden goose is how you actually retire on real estate. And so, Andrew, we're going to choose that as the strategy for our well-off Wellingtonians. What sort of, how much money do they want to spend and when do they want it by?
Let's go on $100,000 a year again in 15 years time. So again, I'm working on people that are getting towards kind of, they've got a more limited runway than a 30-year-old, but let's put in the things like KiwiSaver that they've got at the moment. So put in the first persons, put in the second persons, and these people probably have some other assets because they're a little bit older and they've had really good incomes for a period of time. So let's say they've got a savings scheme. Ed, do you want to just put in shares in there? And let's say they're starting that today, and they're going to run it for 15 years. Let's say they've got zero in there at the moment, but they've got the ability to make a regular payment of, say, $1,000 a week.
Would that be realistic? $1,000 is a lot of money every week.
One thing I would say is probably not with a mortgage, but I'm just using it as an example. Now, there are a lot of people that when they pay off their mortgage, then they want multiple investment options, which I think is a great idea. Someone asked before, can I use this to compare different assets, i.e. shares or having my money in KiwiSaver, all those kind of things. I think it's really important as a robust financial model that you have different options. So you have some more liquid assets like shares, but then you also have some longer term assets like property. We'll put that in let's just say I use my own and I'm saying a 7.5% return. You can change this to whatever. And okay, that's great. So now I can see these people are, halfway to their goal. Now, one thing I would say about the golden goose, sorry, just to deviate a little bit, $100,000 in the nest egg is just that. It's $100,000 because it's money that you're spending. When it's being earned off an asset, so you're getting a return, you need to factor in tax. So down here in the small print is the tax added on. So $135,000 essentially a year is what we're aiming for, knowing that you're going to have to pay tax. Okay, now the great news is these people have a smaller wealth gap of $1.9 million. Still a daunting number. They're still going to have to save over one person's income just to be able to close that wealth gap, if they're just going to do that through saving. But at least they're halfway there. And I'm not going to factor in the superannuation in this case because these people are nervous about superannuation being means tested in the next 15 years. So they want to treat that as a cherry on top or the icing on the cake rather than actually relying on it. Okay, now, at the moment, they're going to have to sacrifice some of these goals. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what this looks like with AI. So I'll click the magic button again and I'm going to close my wealth gap. Let's see what this tells us.
Okay, so it's gathering some information. It's running some of those nonillion scenarios. It's sending it off to our AI tool.
It does it relatively quickly for that number of scenarios. I ask you one question, it takes you 20 minutes to come back to me.
Well, that's the interesting thing is it's actually, it doesn't run all nonillion. What it does is it tries to mimic what our financial advisors actually do. And what you can see is it spits out a draft plan that you can then play with and play a little bit more with. So in this example, these investors actually can borrow a hell of a lot of money, like $2.5 million. Now, it's said maybe you buy 3 properties over 3 years because generally speaking, if you had a little bit less borrowing, you probably would split them out over a few more years. But Andrew, given that they've only got 15 years, how might you as a financial advisor adapt this to get them a little closer to their goal?
So if this person was working with me or this couple was working with me, I'd probably actually get them to be more aggressive at the start. So I'd probably say, okay, let's make this Auckland, for example. And maybe what we do is we also, we hedge our bets and we diversify. We go Christchurch Townhouse and we do that in year 1 as well. Hang on, there we go. Okay, so we use up more of that borrowing power, leave a bit in the tank for next year. And then what I'd probably do is, okay, while Auckland is still relatively cheap to where we'd expect it to be, let's add on another Auckland townhouse, for example, and make that year 2. So again, I can see that nothing's unaffordable for them here. I will note, this is affordability based on what the bank will allow you, not what you can actually afford. So people asked before about cash flow. There's a different part of our software. We can model that out. For now, we're just looking at what's possible for you. So now I go back from can I afford it to what does this actually do? That's awesome. Now I can see I've almost closed my wealth gap in its entirety. If I really wanted to future-proof, I'd just add an extra year onto my plan. And now I've closed my wealth gap in its entirety and I've gone for the golden goose, the more superior option where I can generate an income after tax of $101,000 a year every year for the rest of my life, no matter how long I live.
And what I'd say, again, is the really awesome part of this is not just the, okay, AI slotting in property purchases, that's cool, that's okay. It's really the getting the visibility over what can I potentially buy in the future. Now, I've seen a couple of people ask down in the comments section, okay, is this going to be available for free for everyone? The answer is yes, but not straight away. And there's a really good reason behind this. So we are going to make this available for free in March, but only if you use an Opes advisor. And I want to tell you the reason why. So the only trouble with AI is that it hallucinates. So that is AI hallucinating there. And what I need to do before I release it out to absolutely everybody is I need our financial advisors, and we've got about 10 of them who plan investment properties. I need them to run through this more so that AI can learn from them before we release it to the public. And that's for a really important reason. If we think about your investment portfolio, you're talking about spending like $600,000, $550,000 at least on an investment property. So before I release that out to the J public, I just need to make sure that I'm really comfortable with it. And so that's why we've got that safeguard of saying, okay, if you are going to use this, you've just got to work with a financial advisor first. But just to show you how serious I am about genuinely releasing this to the public, I've already paid for this to be made. So some of you guys will know that you've already got an Opus Plus account. So this is an account where you can come in and you can model the cash flows. This is what Andrew was talking about before, of different investment properties and your whole portfolio. Now, this part is not live in your Opus Plus account yet, but Plan with AI is already there. And if I go back, you can say, okay, I want to buy as many properties as possible. I'm going to do it over 15 years. And I do accept the disclaimer, that's very important. Then it does exactly the same thing. It gathers the information, it plans out a portfolio. In this case, it's planned out 4 properties within that portfolio there, and you can see the impact it has on your wealth.
So I just see in this, at this point where it's not actually putting in a goal, you're doing that with a financial advisor. This is just showing someone what they're able to do based on the inputs they've put today. Because someone asked the question and it was in the chat, so I'm going to answer it anyway. I'm going to get you to answer it anyway. Can I model out changes in lifestyle? So, hey, my kids are going to bugger off and leave home in a few years' time, or I'm planning on having a kid in a few years' time. You can't model that out today. But one of our financial advisors said to us, what about these kind of scenarios? As we build this into New Zealand's best AI tool for property investors, we'll do things like that. But these are things that we haven't considered yet. So at the moment, what we want to do is say, all things remaining equal, what can you do in the future? And then you work with a financial advisor to get customized advice based on your situation.
It's quite good. It's the only property investment tool, AI tool in the country that I know of. And so it's quite lucky that we can say, well, at the moment, it's the best.
Oh, and Kyle just said, I noticed all those properties were in Christchurch. Again, this is just because we're teaching it at the moment. So
I think that's because we said, buy as many properties as possible, and so it's choosing more affordable properties. But Andrew, one thing that I really need to talk about is the downsides. So what are the shortcomings? Because it's not all good. There are big assumptions in this, which I think whoever was just asking that question was kind of hinting at. It's kind of, one of the big assumptions is that you do everything perfectly, that you don't take on more debt, that you don't have lots more expenses like you go buy a car, and that basically you buy these properties as soon as you can, because if you buy a property in year 1, that has an impact on how many properties you can buy in year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because it'd be counting on that rental income. It's also assuming, as I said, that you don't take on debt and that your income doesn't go down. For instance, if you had to take a pay cut because you got made redundant and needed to find another job, or you went on maternity leave, and it assumes you don't have more children. And of course, the biggest one is that house prices and incomes go up by the same amount every single year, which we know doesn't happen, and a whole heap of more. So I always say to people, the results that you see are often kind of aggressive. I always say just treat it as a spreadsheet scenario or an AI scenario. It's not going to be a perfect forecast of what you can actually do. But what I would say is that at the moment, if you think about your future property portfolio, currently a lot of people don't have a very clear or don't have any picture in their head about the portfolio they could potentially create. Now, of course, the ideal scenario is you go and see a fortune teller and they are able to create that picture perfect. This is exactly what's going to happen in the future. Like, that's the ideal. All Opes Ai is trying to do is give you a little more clarity about what the future could look like. And yes, it will be blurry because the future hasn't happened yet. We don't know what's going on there, but it's just trying to get you a little bit closer than you would otherwise be. Now, look, again, how do you get some of this AI tools that we're talking about? Opes Ai on the website is currently live. It's free. It's available to everyone. You don't have to log in. You don't have to give us your email address. That is available at opespartners.co.nz/AI. The property planning, that is live a little later in March, and it is only going to be available at the start if you see an Opes advisor, just to make sure that AI isn't telling you to do stupid things that we wouldn't recommend, because it's really important to us that we don't give bad financial advice to people. That's very important to us. So I just want to talk about, well, what does it mean if I see an Opes advisor? And just give me 3 minutes to talk about this before we get into Q&A, because some people are new here and don't know what that includes. So if you do decide to use an Opes advisor, they're going to create a property investment plan for you. It's basically exactly what Andrew showed you before in terms of creating a plan around how many assets do you actually need to live that future lifestyle you want. And then the second thing that we do is we find new build properties for you. So we only specialize in new build investment properties at our specific company. And that is not going to be the right fit for everybody, but that's what we do. And it's important to understand how we get paid because, as I'm about to tell you, we actually don't charge you for our service. It doesn't cost you anything to see us. And the reason for that is investors go and use a property investment company, which is us and a couple of other people, and then we'll have relationships with developers. And if we can find you the right property from the right developer and you say, yes, I agree with that, that's the sort of property I want to invest in, that's where we earn a fee from that developer. But the thing I always love saying at these webinars is you do not have to use Opes partners. You could go and you could Google property investment companies. Hey, you could even ask Chat GPT. Maybe even try asking Opes Ai. Who are some different property investment companies? Well, there's us, there's Propeller, there's Positive Real Estate. They're on there too. Property Factory, they're an example of a property investment company. You could use any of those companies. And so the question that a lot of people ask is, well, why would I talk to you guys then? And I suppose we've shown it tonight. We try and use a lot of data, a lot of financial modeling to help you make good decisions. We've got properties that are off market you can't find on Trade Me. We try and evidence to you guys that they are good prices and good deals. If you're interested in that, I might talk a little bit about that in the Q&A. We give a table like this to every single investor who sees us to try and prove that these are well-priced properties. And we've got all the support you need in one place. So we can give you financial advice. We can manage the property for you. We've got Opus Mortgages and Opus Accounting. So look, I won't talk too much more about this. I don't like to ever do a big hard sell. But if you are interested, I'm going to put one final poll across your screen shortly. And I want to offer you a portfolio planning session. Now, again, this doesn't cost you. There's no fee for it. We get paid how I told you before. But this is where you can walk through and use the AI that Andrew showed you and use the tools that Andrew showed you before and just see what that looks like for your financial future. So producer Dave's going to put one final poll across your screen and say, are you keen to come in for that free session? If you click the top one, we'll send you a link to book. If you click the bottom one, no worries. We won't send you that link to book.
And Jasmine said, can we get in touch, or do we get in touch with our financial advisor? So Jasmine, I'm taking it you're dealing with someone at Opus, which is great. Thank you very much for working with us. Or do we email you? So if you're doing an annual review with us, which happens annually, unless you pull it forward, we'll be using this as a tool if you want to be used for, with you. Some people still like the good old-fashioned manual way of doing it. If you want this now, absolutely either email your financial advisor or your CRM, and they'll book it in. They'll book in a meeting with you.
And one thing we should mention, it's quite funny. We had an investor who was working with Grace, one of our financial advisors, and I think he'd got one of these emails talking about some of the AI tools we're going to release
From me.
And this person was a little bit more, can I say old school, Andrew?
Yeah, he was old school.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but he had some legitimate concerns about, well, hey, wait a second, I don't want my financial information shared with an AI. I want to make sure it's protected. Now, if that's a question, which we can definitely jump into, I've got an article for you on our website about how the AI tool works and how we protect your data. But you do not have to use the AI tool. Your information does not have to be touched by AI if you'd prefer that. And that would be totally okay with us, just so you know. One thing that I will just mention before we wrap up, and I see some really good questions, is if you do want to learn more and dig into property, and this is the first time you've talked to us, listen to the podcast, Property Academy, episode 2000 went live today. It's an absolute banger. I hope you listen to it. It's about people who bought at the top of the market and what happens if you've lost a lot of money. Really important to dig into. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We release 2 new videos every single week. And on top of that, you can buy our book, Wealth Plan, at wealthplanbook.com, $39 including shipping in that. So let's dig into questions, Andrew. What kind of things are catching people's eyes?
There's been a lot of questions around some of the things that you can do with the chatbot. Someone wanted to know whether or not you can find out vacancy rates per suburb, which I believe the answer is no. But do you have any thoughts on that?
The answer is no, but it would be able to tell you the difference between the vacancy rates in Christchurch and Auckland, because that's something we've written a lot about. In terms of vacancy rates per suburb, I just have to think about, okay, that is a good question. Where can I get the data from?
Someone asked the question before, does it use other property websites or does it just use ours?
It just uses ours as the source for that.
And part of the reason for that, I mean, because I guess the framing of the question was, isn't it going to be completely biased? Well, If you believe our information is biased, then absolutely it's going to be biased. But one of the things, particularly for those of you that have followed us for a while, is we are very open about who we are, how we operate, how we make our money, what the pros and cons are of us, who else you can use. So we try and be as unbiased as possible. And so as a result, our goal isn't to work with every person in New Zealand. Our goal is to make people better at property investors, and that's why all of these tools that you'll see, they're all free. All of the information we put out, it's free. If you want to use us, awesome. We'd love to work with you. If you don't, that's cool as well, and we respect that.
One thing I just want to mention as well, I just went in and said, who's the best property investment company? It said, I'm sorry, I don't have that information. I said, well, is Opes Partners the only property investment company? No, Opes Partners is not the only property investment company. There are several property investment firms in New Zealand, each offer different expertise. I'm glad that our tool thinks we're well regarded. This is what we do. But, it will tell you when we're not the only people in New Zealand who do what we do. There are others as well. And that's just the honest thing. What else is tickling your fancy?
Taylor asked a good question. Does Opes AI have real-time access to the latest data? If not, when will the data be captured from?
Yeah, short answer is yes. So we import data every single month. It does depend. So when you talk to it, you'll see that the data will get cut off at different times. So at the moment, tenancy services data goes up to November 2024. So that's rental data. I think Opes AI is pulling through up to October, so just 1 month behind. I'll get that fixed. In terms of median house price data, that goes up to January 2025, it should do. For realeestate.co.nz, it should go up to January 2025. When I update it with the latest data, I got that in my inbox, I think 2 days ago. I've been lazy. I haven't uploaded it to the website. As soon as it does, it's going to feed in straight away. So that's the kind of really exciting part about this, is all of the data that I really care about is being fed straight into this. And actually, I can already see how this is going to be quite useful for me and my team in terms of shortcutting things. And when I say that, rather than digging into a spreadsheet, digging into an AI that already has that data there for us. I'll tell you another question that's really got my captured my interest. Yujun asked, what model technique are you using for building the property AI?
I saw that. I had no idea what he's talking about.
Is it human interaction for validating the response from the model? So I'll tell you exactly what it is. I might not be able to answer your whole question because genuinely, I might not be as clued up at AI as you are, because that seems to be quite a good question. What we're doing is we are taking we have got training data from previous plans that we have created at Opus for property investors, and we're feeding that into the AI and then saying, learn from this. Then what we're doing is we're saying, okay, here is the model that AI, or the properties that AI has spat out. What changes are our financial advisors making to those plans? Let us learn from that. So I think the answer is probably human interaction when it comes to planning out of those properties. Again, that is the reason why I'm saying I don't want to release the property planning part yet. I want to show you, I want you to get you jazzed up about it, but I want our financial advisors to run it through a few times before we say, sweet, this is ready. Some of the more technical questions you jot around the K value, the ranking for the select response, I couldn't tell you. That's way above my pay grade.
Now, Naveed, you said that you're going because you had something else on, but you had a good question. I do want to address it, which is why are townhouses being promoted as the first option more regularly? The reason is that they're more affordable. Now, that isn't necessarily what someone might buy, and that's why we've got the ability as financial advisors to tailor-make a plan. So we can use AI to get the affordability and spit out some information, but it's the early days. We need to input more data based on what people actually want to be investing in. And again, this is the first version. This literally, Ed showed me this today. So there's so much more that we're going to do with this over the next months and years, let's face it. So Naveed or anyone else, that isn't necessarily what we're saying you should invest in. This is just the base model of something you might invest in.
Two things I just want to say if I can. There were two comments or questions that came came in at 717, and they couldn't be more polar opposite apart. So Kenneth said, this is going to be a great tool dedicated for property investment in New Zealand. And I thank you for that, Kethan. And then Stefan, the same minute, said Chat GPT can do all that and more at 717. So I totally appreciate that if you're an absolute AI genius and you're like right into it, you might look at this and be like, well, Chat GPT can do some of this. Yeah, okay, it can do quite a bit of it because we're building off Chat GPT as well. Some things that it can't do is plug into the Ryan's database because Ryan's data is not public. So we're trying to surface some of that. So look, Stefan, if we've missed your expectations, I'm really sorry about that. But the good thing is you've got ChatGPT that is matching your expectations.
And one thing I would say is there is a lot of stuff that we have learned about the New Zealand market that won't necessarily be relevant in ChatGPT at the moment. And there's a lot of people that wouldn't want to put their personal information into AI. That's why when we deal with a customer's information, we anonymize things to make sure that that's protected. So again, we're just wanting to give another option for people based on our experience, which has worked for thousands of investors.
The good news as well is that if you are using ChatGPT to talk about property, half the time it's pulling from our website.
I like that as well. Lyle said, hey, look, I earn X, my house value's X, my mortgage is given a whole bunch of information, and I said, I'm guessing I'm in a good position to invest. If you're listening, absolutely you are. But my wife is tight as a tiger, which I thought that was quite funny. There's some great articles on our website about talking to your partner about investing and, hey, I want to invest, but my partner doesn't. The first piece of advice I'd give to you, get on the same page. You're never going to be doing something if your partner, your significant other, is not into it. I'm yet to meet an investor brave enough to go and invest in a property without their partner's consent. So I would say get on the same page. That'll make for a more healthy conversation. But then also, have a conversation about whether or not you need to. There are people that we meet all the time that have good income, but they're also doing enough at the moment for the future life that they want. In which case, sure, you might want to invest to hedge your bets, but you might not need to either. So you want to work out, do you actually have a wealth gap? And if so, what's more scary? Doing something about it and taking some risk, or knowing that we are absolutely not going to get to our goal?
And just in terms of how do you get on the same page, the best thing you can do is listen or read to the same information. So I know that there are couples who both will separately read Mary Holmes' columns in the New Zealand Herald. She's a really trusted financial journalist here in New Zealand. And they'll both read it. And because they've both absorbed it, they can have a conversation about it. That's how you get on the same page. We met a really awesome couple today. We recorded a podcast for Case Study Sundays. And they were saying to us, Ed, we both listen to the podcast. We're both keen to invest in property. Property is not the only thing we invest in. We're investing a lot in shares. We're paying down our mortgage a lot. But it was amazing seeing this couple down in the Manawatu. I think it was Stacey and Simon were their names. And they are so together because they are listening to the same stuff. They're talking about money frequently. So the best thing to do is read the same stuff, listen to the same stuff, go to the same webinars, whatever it happens to be. Doesn't have to be ours, but that is how you start to get on that same page.
Do I ask the question, do you expect house prices to increase now the OCR has dropped again? Short answer is yes. And I'll quantify that by, I'll back that up by saying, so does the Reserve Bank. Will it happen as quickly as we thought it was, or thought it would? No. The Reserve Bank have downgraded what their house increase forecasts are for this year. Yes, increases, but not as fast as what they were previously thinking. And also it depends on how long you're wanting to invest for. If you're buying for the short term, don't expect short-term growth of any kind of major magnitude. But if you're buying to get a good deal today while other people are sitting on their hands, I think that's a great opportunity.
It's quite interesting that you bring up the Reserve Bank's house price predictions. I've just updated this not long ago with the most recent ones I could get out of the major banks. ASB is still forecasting 9.4% this year. I think that's probably a bit ambitious. I think it's probably going to be closer to what BNZ, ANZ are saying, about 6.86%. Interesting, I haven't updated it since I just saw yesterday when I was preparing for a video. ANZ released their latest forecast in February, and they are still sitting at that 6% for the year. So this gives you a sense of, what might you be able to expect. And I'm recording a video tomorrow about the reason reasons why all of these banks are wrong, and it's going to be much, much worse than that, and maybe house prices won't go up. And then I'm also going to talk about the arguments for why the banks might be right as well. What else is catching your attention, Andrew?
Sorry.
I'll tell you a really good one.
A few people have asked about commercial properties. That's not something we give advice on today at Opus Partners. We've got a lot of articles and we've got some podcasts around commercial properties. So from a general information standpoint, absolutely, but it's not something you can come in and get advice from our financial advisors today.
Okay, that's really interesting. Reese has asked a question. Reese has got some great technical questions.
Reese had a lot of questions.
He said, is there a limit to how many questions it can answer in one session? That is a great question. Not that I'm aware of, actually.
I think that things like Grok, is it, that has a limitation on the number of questions before you register?
Oh, that's quite interesting. The answer is no. We don't even have a login functionality where we force you to log in. But that's a really, really interesting one. Carol's asked a great question. Is the affordability calculation considering DTI as well as the bank's test rate limits? The answer is yes. So there are 3 tests that we look at within the model, and there's a couple of thousand lines of code in there, so I won't take you through it. But it mainly looks at deposits. Can you afford it from borrowing the deposit against your property? Can you afford it from a debt to income perspective? And can you afford it from the bank's test like UMI, or can you really afford this mortgage test? So it does look at all of that. Alistair's asked, well, with your chatbot, guys, does the AI give sources or references with its answers? You showed earlier that you guys are able to essentially hard code answers, such as who's more handsome. The answer is sometimes. So sometimes at the moment, it spits out links for where it's got the data from. One of the things I've got my developers kind of quite hot on is I'm like, I do want to show sources because I think that makes it more trusting. You talked before about, hey, you guys have shown that you're able to hard code answers. At the moment, there are only 2 things that I've hard coded in. Number 1 is it was giving the wrong link to book a session with us. So like if you said, hey, yeah, I'm actually keen to book with you guys, it was giving out the wrong link. So I've just corrected that. The second was the example of who's more handsome, Andrew or Ed. The only other thing that I'm really keen to hard code in is don't give specific financial advice, which is i.e. don't say to yourself, Alistair, this is what you, Alistair R, should do, because that would be against our license with the FMA, and that would not be something that we'd want to do. So I appreciate that question. It's a very good one. We're working on those answers. If you do ask it actually, what is your source? There was and maybe I'll show this. This will be quite interesting if I pull it up. Let's do it. So who is more handsome, Andrew or Ed? Cool, and it should spit out Ed is more handsome. What is your source for this? The statement about Ed and Andrew is part of the system context provided to me and is not based on any external source or personal opinion. So that's kind of the way that you might be able to test, like, have we hard-coded it to say something that is against your financial interests?
Someone said, can AI software factor in inflation for the future years? Yeah, so it does. So when we're working out, okay, someone wants to buy a property in Queenstown today and it's going to cost $860,000, the AI knows to apply a 5% capital growth rate. And so in 10 years, it's no longer 860, it's now $1.3 million, for example. So absolutely it takes it into account, and it takes into account your income increasing, rents increasing, when you bought properties, etc. Someone also said, there was another good question here.
Gina's asked a great question just while you're finding that one, Andrew. She says, does it cost to chat with you guys about if we could buy another property? The answer is no, Gina. It doesn't cost you anything. As I said before, we get paid in a couple of ways. First of all, if we could find you the right new build investment property, we earn a fee from the developer. Really important to be upfront about that. The second thing is we've got lots of other businesses. We've got Opus Mortgages. So if we can find you or get you the loan from the bank, then you should. Then we can earn a commission from that from the bank. We've got a property management company. If you decide to use our services, you might decide to use them. There's a fee attached to that if we manage your property. And also we've got property accounting as well through Opus Accounting. One thing that I really want to, I'm personally very proud of, and just before you get into that, our disclosure statement on our website is awesome. So we legally have to have this, but it is our like legal disclosure, and we have written it in a way you can actually understand. So it's everything you want to know about Opus Partners, but we're too scared to ask. Like, are we allowed to give financial advice? What sort of advice do we give? How do we do that? How much does it cost? How do we handle our conflicts of interest? What are those conflicts of interest? And we've got a video about the problems with Opus Partners, just so that you can become really informed. And the thing I am most proud of is that on this, on our disclosure statement that we legally need to have anyway, people actually write comments on this disclosure statement saying, I like the transparency. And I've just never seen that in anybody's like disclosure statement. I think it's awesome. So if you want to dig into some of those, technical questions about how do we manage conflicts of interest, we've got an article for you there, Gina, as well.
Tracy asked, do you recommend investing using Airbnb rental return rather than just renting? And does AI work out the best places to buy? No, it doesn't work out the best places to buy, not at this stage, Tracy, but that's something that will change in the future. As far as renting and investing using Airbnb, one thing I would say, and we've done lots of content on on Airbnb, I think it is a great tool to maximize the amount of return you might get from an investment property, but because it's such a relatively new business, and it's going to be something that is challenged by governments and councils, and there'll be a whole lot of things that you don't think will affect you that will affect Airbnb in the future. I think it would be really naive to plan a long-term investment using a short-term business like Airbnb. Take someone that is investing in New York, for example. You cannot legally have an Airbnb in New York now. You know that, right?
Of course I know that.
I'm just making sure. And I think that those people that invested there were a whole lot of people that made a lot of money with Airbnb in New York. Those businesses don't exist for them now. And I know there are a lot of places out there at the moment, developers particularly, who are dressing things up as good investments as Airbnbs. Hey, make hay while the sun shines. But don't be naive enough to think that that is is going to be there forever. And I would never buy something that didn't work in its normal fundamentals as an investment.
Just on the little inside joke about New York and the legality of it. We've got a podcast. Has it come out yet, Producer Dave? It already has. Where we had the chief economist from AirDNA. Oh, David's saying maybe it hasn't come out yet. We've recorded it. So we got the chief economist or the principal economist. I think his title might be Head of Economics and Forecasting at AirDNA. AirDNA is a data firm that is coming out on Thursday, is a data firm that provides a lot of numbers about Airbnb. And he was talking about some of those changes in regulation that have come up. There was another great question that Andrew asked, which was, do I have to enter my salary or my budget information into the AI to figure out that affordability, or is it based on assumptions? So there are some assumptions and there's some stuff you do need to enter to make sure that it's accurate for you, Andrew. So you do need to enter salary. So the money coming in, because that is a really material piece of information when we're forecasting how much can you potentially borrow in the future. In terms of how much you spend per week, we don't collect that. What we ask for, we ballpark that based on some of the bank's assumptions so that they often have. And then we ask for a few expenses, like if you're sending your kids to private school, because that has a really material impact on your ability to borrow. Maybe if you're sending your kids to childcare, that is also something we collect. Big debts like mortgages, the AI needs to know that in order to be able to tell you what you can borrow or not. Now, perfectly fine if you're like, I don't want to put that into AI, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that. Best thing in that case is just to talk to a mortgage advisor. They're going to be able to run those scenarios to figure that out for you. Again, it's totally, I don't know whether you were saying, hey, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with AI or not, but it's totally fine to be uncomfortable with saying, hey, this is my personal information. I don't kind of want to give it to this black box computer that I don't know what's going on. That makes me feel uncomfortable. Sweet as, if that's how you feel, great. Just we can do that in a different way by talking to a mortgage advisor, whether one of ours or somebody else.
Did you answer this one before by Andrew? I was paying attention to something else.
No, I haven't
No,
answered that
I'll
one.
answer that one. So, Andrew said we make a lot of interest rate and house price forecasts and assumptions. Are those assumptions disclosed? The answer is absolutely. So, one of our key things is that we will make the best guess based on the information we have, and we're going to get it wrong as well. So, what we do in tools like Opus Plus is we make sure you have control to A, know what those assumptions are, and B, change them yourself. So, for example, we might use rental inflation at 4.5%. That's a very fair long-term average. There's a podcast coming out on that in the next couple of weeks. If you're uncomfortable doing that, change it to 3. Change it to whatever you're comfortable with, and go in and make the interest rate whatever you want, because your guess is as good as ours. But we're doing what we think is best for people to make a proper modelling for.
Yeah, cool. Another great one. Which is, this person's asked, an anonymous studio said, can your AI be trained on different data sources? So like images or videos or text, like lots of different types of data to be able to compare individual properties. So could it give advice on a property that might look undervalued in comparison to other properties in the area, maybe with a pool or something like that? No, it doesn't do any of that at the moment. You've got to turn that.
Sorry.
It doesn't do any of that at the moment, and we probably don't have any plans for that. In terms of my roadmap of what I'm planning, the big thing is we want to get this right first, because the big question, it's amazing. We work with I think this week we had 80 new investors coming in, talking to our team, creating financial plans like you've seen tonight. And one of the big questions that they all ask is, we want to know what we can do. We want to know, based on a scenario, and we know that it's a ballpark scenario, but what might we be able to do? How many properties could we purchase? What's realistic for us? That's the big question we're really trying to answer tonight. In terms of the question around how do I decide which property to buy, I think that's why we built Opes Plus, which is that other portal that we kind of took you through a little bit, where AI will be in the future. And what that really does is tries to compare the cash flow so that you can get an understanding of what it looks like. But it's an interesting question. We'll keep that in the back of our minds as well. I see you typing away. Anything?
I started typing, but it was actually too long a reply for you, Chris, which is when looking at a tool like ours, and we've got a huge reliance on data, how does one trust that the data doesn't slant towards our offering, Opus's offering, and therefore enable us to make an informed decision by being not biased? We appreciate that we get paid from the commission of a sale. So we absolutely have a bias to making someone want to buy or wanting to encourage someone to invest. Chris, we absolutely want someone to invest if they need to invest. But the numbers are just the numbers. So if you work with a financial advisor and you put together a financial plan and you don't have a wealth gap, you will see that. You'll see that very quickly. And then it's your decision as an investor. Do I want to improve my chances of hitting that goal by having more assets, or am I quite comfortable with what I'm doing at the moment? And after that, I would just say, Chris, never rely on one person being the sole person to go through for truth. We're not the sole source of truth. We do our best, and we absolutely treat the fact that people put faith in us to invest. We hold that in high esteem, and we're not gonna give people information or tell someone to invest when they ought not to. We're not only bound by the FMA not to do that, but we take it pretty seriously. But always check the numbers yourself. Ask yourself, does this seem right? Go to other areas like Google, go to other areas like Chat GPT and get more information, and make sure that you are using independent people to support the decision making.
Yeah, look, I'd just add to that if you're using Chat GPT, you shouldn't be trusting it anyway. You should not trust any AI chatbots that's going to be giving you an independent perspective, right? So, for example, I think as we showed some examples before, if you jump into Chat GPT, often it will be pulling sources from our websites or similar websites like OneRoof, Stuff, NZ Herald, anything where there is some really good technical information if you are diving down into this. And so because that's based on articles that have been written by companies like us, or in some instances us as well, you don't want to absolutely trust it and say, AI is the most independent thing. And I can absolutely trust this. Just like if you go on Google and you start looking around and you read something from somebody's website, you're not going to say, well, this is absolutely 100% accurate. I can totally believe that. We've still got to dig down as well. And so I think this is a useful tool. It's a really useful tool, especially if you don't want to read all of the articles on our website and you want to cut down to the information that you're really interested in. But it is not going to be a replacement for your own judgment. And, I know that the sort of people who come to these webinars and spend an hour 20 with us on a Tuesday night to talk about property investment, I know you guys are smart enough to know that you're not just going to take this as gospel as well. What else? We'll probably take two more, Andrew.
Two more questions.
But basically, there's still over 500 people here.
Also, one of the other things I'd say is the great thing about these webinars is all of the chats are live. People can say whatever the hell they want in there. And it's really nice to see when people ask questions like that, like, how do I trust the information? There are a lot of people that will say, hey, I've worked with these guys and found them down to earth, which I really like that. As a company that we work hard for the last 12 years to try and give good advice. It's nice to see some of the people that have benefited from that. What else is there?
I'll answer Ian's one while you find your last one. So Ian said, can't Chat GPT or other AI already access the same data and perform the same calculations? The answer is some of them. So the chatbot that we showed you before is the most similar to Chat GPT, right? There is some data that our one will have access to, like the Ryan's House Price Index data and some of the average house price data, that actually is not that available online. And when we gave you an example between Chat GPT and Opes Ai before, they were giving out very similar answers. And in fact, ChatGPT was referencing our website anyway, because we provide more of that data out to the public where it hasn't been as available before. So yes, it does. It sometimes provides quite similar things to ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is pulling from our website anyway. Some certain data, actually, I've tested it and can come out better. I want to make it even better than ChatGPT because I can give it more accurate and reliable data. I'll give you an example. I cannot, and I'm not allowed to publish on our website the New Zealand house price index data that comes out of the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand. It's copyrighted. But I can feed that into AI and I can let you ask it questions about market fluctuations. Previously, the house price index, which is the most reliable measure of whether house prices are increasing or decreasing, that is not available to New Zealanders or not easily available. I can make it available to you through Opes Ai. ChatGPT won't have that because it's behind a paywall or behind a membership paywall. So that's kind of our aspiration behind it. In terms of planning out property portfolios, ChatGPT doesn't do that. And the reason is because we had to work very, very hard creating a massive financial model to be able to forecast how many properties people are able to buy. That's ours. That's proprietary. So ChatGPT doesn't have that. So some stuff, yes, it's going to be very, very similar. Other stuff, it's not going to be. But again, I don't think that our goal is necessarily to be like a ChatGPT killer. Like, we're not trying to say, don't use that, use our stuff as well. This is a tool because people are on our website anyway, wanting to get our information. Our search function in the past has not been the best. And so this is about, what was that podcast that I listened to about that girl who earned not a lot of money and was able to flip a property? Oh, that was Haley McLaughlin, and she was on this podcast. It's that's where it starts to become really, really, really useful. And I'll let you have the last question, Andrew.
Just replying. Someone said, a question for another day. I'm going to cover it today, Rob. How do you compare new build versus non-new? So this is where I'd probably either search our website or use the new chat tool and say, what's the difference between new build and existing? And you could ask them what the difference is as far as capital growth. In the past, there's some great articles on our websites that will give you the data on that. And also the pros and cons, because there's pros and cons for both. The other thing I'd do is I'd use the front end of Opus Plus. So we spoke a little bit about the back end and the financial planning side of things tonight. The front end, which you all have access to now, you can put in different properties. So you can put in a new build investment, put in all the data, you can get the outputs, what the cash flow will look like, what the return on investment is, and then you can do it for an existing properties as well. Because let's face it, property investment is all about the numbers. It's a business. So if you really want to know the difference, chuck in two different examples.
Right, let's wrap it up there. And we're going to be back again next month. I don't know what our topic is next month, but we're going to have another banger.
We'll figure it out.
And we'll see you soon. And we'll see you tomorrow morning for episode 2001 of the Property Academy podcast. See you guys soon. Bye now.